Hey, Soul Survivors, I'm Cynthia Schiller, and I am here with the face behind the video for the beautiful breakup. And I'll add that in the description below so you guys can watch that as well. This is GABBI LOLMAUGH, and she is a fascinating person, a very strong woman, and her perspective is very insightful. So, GABBI, we talked about the beautiful breakup, and can you just kind of give us a little recap of how the breakup went? Then we're going to talk about the red flags that you saw and also sexuality. We're going to get into that a little bit too. So, please go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So I to summarize the breakup, it hit me like a wall. I didn't expect any of it. I wasn't ready for any of it. We had just moved into a house together. The dust had just started to settle. And we went to bed cuddling that night and we woke up and everything had changed.
So,
She told me, "Go ahead."
what I was going to ask what she did, how it came to a halt all of a sudden.
So she read me a Bible verse on Leviticus, Old Testament, stating, I don't know the verse off the top of my head, but how a man should not lie with a man and how a woman should not lie with a woman. And she asked me if how I felt about that and if my views had changed, if I realized the errors in our relationship and how our relationship was a sin. And I looked at her and I said, "You can't tell me that those words tell me I can't love you." And she said that's where we took two different roads.
Now, this was her first female female relationship, correct?
Correct. We started dating back April 17th, 2021. So right as soon as all the COVID regulations were being lifted and you could start living again and all that jazz. We started dating about 2 years ago.
Now
And then
she's a pastor's daughter as well.
yes, yes. So she grew up extremely religious, but we also talked about God through our entire relationship. I thought I was very in tune with God. But during this breakup, she tells me we had a manipulation of God in our head and it wasn't the true God.
Do you think those
And
were
that,
her feelings or her father's feelings put on her?
well, so the day previous, which I wish I connected the dots, but I didn't. Um, she was outside in the yard, in the backyard. One second. I'm so sorry. My laptop says it's gonna die.
So I'll fill in a little bit while she goes and gets her cord. Um, she's been really strong, and she's still going through the grieving process. The purpose of this video is not so much on lesbianism or things like that, but just to understand how people are, where trauma may impact them, on the decisions that they make, on the choices that they make, and the backtracking, red flags we may miss. And good to have you back. Yeah, you gotta love the batteries
Yeah, it
always
just
go out in
snapped
the
out the
middle.
back there. I usually have it plugged in all the time, but it just moved on me. But she was in the backyard and I couldn't find her when I woke up, and that's extremely rare. That never happens. And she sees me come outside because I want to check on her, and she walks to the back of the yard. So I give her her space and I go back inside the house. I'm like, oh, she's probably having a deep conversation with some of her loved ones. So she comes back inside, wipes her tears away visibly, and then fakes a smile,
Hmm.
and then tells me nothing happened. And that was the day before the breakup. And after the breakup, I find out that she was talking to her dad on the phone,
Okay.
and I can only imagine.
Eh,
I have a very big feeling that she gave the slightest sense of hesitation and he jumped on it.
yeah.
And even there's no one giving her another perspective. And I don't know if that helped her go away faster.
Now you had mentioned something about a journal that she had, and how soon was her breakup from her boyfriend? Was it a recent breakup where she was in a vulnerable state?
I would say it was probably about 6 or 8 months,
Okay, a decent
six
amount
or
of
eight
time.
months between, yeah, enough to have a few rebounds and heal. Um, but yeah, so it was a if 6 or so months before we got together. but the journal was dated 2 months before we moved in, which would have been when we were looking for houses.
So you are already involved. And
We
so
were,
her journal entry
yeah,
was 2 months during, so you guys were together, what,
so
2.5 years?
yes. From right now, if we were still dating right now, it'd be like almost our 2.5.
Okay. So it was almost 2 years into the relationship. She started writing that she was missing her boyfriend. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So the journal was dated back, it was October 3rd, 2022.
And so I know that's like really, really hard. And her sexuality though, was she comfortable in her sexuality or
So what she always told me while we were together was she was internally homophobic, which was really interesting to me because I've never heard someone talk about it in that sense. But again, that screamed that religious trauma to me. And, she couldn't really be who she was in her small town of 3,000 people.
okay, that makes
So
sense.
she told me when she moved to Ball State that she got a different perspective and, people could be who they wanted to be and they could be the realest form of themselves. And that's everything that Ball State taught her. And that's when she made the option to hit girls and guys on Tinder.
Okay. Oh,
And
so
that's how
she,
we matched.
oh, so you met through Tinder.
Yes.
Okay. And do you think she was just looking for curiosity or she was looking for a relationship?
Looking back on it now, I think she wanted a fun time. And I think I was a very real, deep
Mm.
person.
You are.
And like,
You really are.
I think I caught her by surprise. I do. And I think I blew her away in the first few months. I really do. And like I said, I saw no flags at that point. I didn't see anything telling me that, she was going to flip on a dime like she did. And she did have a previous experience with a female, but it was never a relationship. And she actually kind of got scarred from it a little bit. She was a very attacky gay. Like she like attacked her because she had never been with a female before. That other woman got very upset that she would try to be with a female.
Okay.
So when I went about it, we very much took it slow. And, I wanted to be her friend first. Even if it wasn't a relationship, I wanted her in my life.
Now,
So
as
I need that presence.
and this is, I know it's very controversial, and I'd like to open up a discussion, not judgmental in any way. It's just to open the discussion. I know some people say that it's genetic, and just like with the narcissist, some people say it's genetic, but how much of it is environment versus
Right.
nature versus nurture? Because I'm completely heterosexual. I think it's weird because I think women are beautiful. And then
Right.
there's some guys that are okay, but I'm not attracted to them, but I think they're beautiful. And I can sit here all day long and say I would never be with a woman and hold true to that. But if I grew up on an island somewhere where it's only females on that island, would I think guys are gross? If I grew up believing that this is what you're supposed to do or it's okay. So I can
Right.
say I'd never do it, but if I grew up in I don't know what I would do. You know what I mean?
I
So
think your environment does play a very big aspect on it. Because I mean, I was outed at school. That's the reason I came out, is because someone else told, and they told me they were going to tell my parents. So, I
oh,
mean, I had to come out, and
was it
being forced out of the closet is rough.
was it a dating person who said that they would tell or just a
Um, so she was my best friend through like all of elementary into middle school, and she had a girlfriend. Was not me, but she was the only gay out girl in the
okay.
entire school. So she got a lot of heat for it, and she wanted another punching bag.
See, and that's where it's like respect. Like when
She
it's
wanted
your time to tell people, it's your time. And she
That's
was
what I
you.
will tell everybody. Like, it's your story, you go about it how you wanna go about it, and that's for you to do. Like, I've been in many closeted relationships myself where my significant other isn't out yet. And even then, I don't cross that boundary because that's their journey.
Now, is society really hard on you?
I'm here to assist. I'm here to help wherever I could.
Is society really judgmental?
If I lived somewhere else, I would probably say no, but yes. And I got bullied a lot. I did. Definitely a lot of overcoming I had to do. I get told, "Why don't you like guys?" Guys would tell me they could make me straight, like
Doesn't
a
work
whole
that
bunch of
way.
stuff like that. It doesn't quite
Just
work
like
that way.
girls can say, Cynthia, I'll make you. It's like, no, it doesn't work
Right,
that way. I don't care how pretty you
right.
are. And that's the
And
thing
like,
too. Do you
go ahead.
think, because you have, and that's why, like, is it genetic? Because your grandfather, I'd like you to talk about him and also the trauma that he went through. Could some of it be trauma? Could some of it be birth order? Could some of it be, just genetic? Because if he was homosexual, those genes may be within your family lineage.
Right. So with my limited information, because I was very young when he died, I have a lot of passed down stories, but
Oh, great grandfather, sorry.
going yes, going through ancestry and pulling up these news reports, his father was in the car with his wife. They were driving down a very long road and he pulled a gun and he shot his wife in the head and then turned around and killed himself with 4 children in the back seat. And he happened to be one of the kids. And moving on from that was very, very traumatic. It was very hard.
Do you know
Like
how
how
old he was?
I believe he's 12.
Oh, okay. That's
He he was one of the oldest kids in the car.
Oh, so he probably had the
He
trauma
was
of the
11
other
or 12,
kids
yeah.
trying to take on
But
that.
he also was that big brother sense, like he had to be strong. And he grew up and he went into the Navy and Air Forces and got a military funeral. Great man, but he went through a lot growing up. He married a woman because you can't be gay in those times.
Right.
He had a family who had 4 or 5 kids,
Okay. Do you know if he was
and
more on the feminine side or the masculine side? Do you know?
I would say masculine just because of how I see the photos, but then again, everyone if you were a
Right.
guy, you had to be masculine back in that day.
True.
That was all very hush hush behind closed doors. If anyone knew, it'd be bad news,
Right. Yeah, it was wasn't it like they were like killed sometimes too over that? Yeah, so no wonder
especially in the
people.
army.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
So he definitely did have it way rougher than we have it now.
Very true.
And he didn't have a choice of a come out story.
So, with all the trauma, like a lot of times, like with the narcissists and stuff, is a lot of their stuff is trauma based. And, you know, hiding things and shame and things like that. Do you, how do you think the trauma, do you think it's just a different way of expressing trauma because I know we talked about like women, how women, a lot, and it happens to men too, but a lot of women have been sexually assaulted. And you and I discussed, you brought it up. I was very impressed with your thought process on, because there are women that'll either shut down sexually or they'll become overly sexual. And you had mentioned about maybe it's the person who they trusted, like a close family member, versus an outside person. Does that either cause them to shut down or to act out and maybe even change? Does that affect sexuality where
Well,
you don't want to be with a man?
right. Personally, how I go about it is it creates walls. It creates barriers that are very, very hard to break down. And I think it's a lot of trauma that you have to work through yourself. It's a lot of trauma. And if you don't work through it, I think you get stuck.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, I it's not that I look at a guy and I think they're gonna assault me.
Right.
It's the fact that there's no feeling there at all.
And did you ever like, I know you said that you started looking at your childhood. Was there ever any time you had you were 12 or 14 years old and you're like, oh, I wish I could go out with him? And did you ever have a
Oh,
crush on
I
someone?
actually tried to force myself to be straight for a very long time. My mom told me 2 things growing up. You cannot be in a job position that holds a gun, and you're not allowed to be gay.
Oh,
Those were my 2 rules growing up.
so
So coming out was very, very hard,
she specifically said that to you? Did she maybe
many
have an
times.
ink? Did she say that to your brother about, okay, so she just
Both of
made it.
them.
Huh. Do you know why she said that? Just because of what she expected her children to be, or does it have something to do
I
with her grandfather's life? How she knew how difficult it was for him, or religious? Do you?
I we really don't talk about this much, me and my mom, on why she did feel that way originally. She tells me now that, like, it's gonna be a hard life for you. It's gonna be a hard life if you're gay. And her reason for me not being able to have a job that holds a gun position is because you get shot at.
Yeah,
If you hold a gun, people are shooting at you. So I think a lot of it was safety, and she wanted me to be safe. She didn't want people to pick on me. She just wanted me to fit in a, not necessarily put me in a box, but bubble wrap me.
yeah.
And I think a lot of it was her being scared of what the world would do to me
And this is the thing
if I
too,
was.
because I know your mom loves you so much. Sometimes perception, is it, and some of it was possibly, your mom, maybe she wasn't ready to have a child that was a different way. I don't know how to word it, but than she expected. So
Right.
was it to her image, but the way that she came around and handled it with you was true love.
Do you know what changed her mind?
Trying to remember. Was it a biblical?
No, actually. So, she was scrolling through her Google feed, her medias, and a post came up about a young girl who had killed herself because her dad wouldn't accept her.
And that's a sad.
And she had
Go ahead.
tried everything from conversion therapy to dating guys to praying the gay away, tried everything. And she came up to her dad and she pleaded and she bawled her eyes out in front of him. And she said, I've tried. I can't, I can't put away these feelings. I can fake it, but I cannot put away these feelings. And he said, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
I don't accept you. And she killed herself, and now her dad is one of the biggest advocates and allies that we know to this day. It changed his complete perspective, and I think it hit my mom in the core where she realized, "Hey, this could take my daughter from me."
that's true. If you can't live your own true self, and with the narcissist, there's people are like, can they change? And there are some that do change, just like your ex. She went back to doing, being with or planning on being with guys, but some people change, some
And part
people
of me
can't.
wonders if that's fake.
Yeah, time will tell.
I don't know which part she's faking anymore.
That's hard. Have you
And
stayed in contact with her?
not much after finding that journal because I think any of her reasons would hurt me more.
Now,
I
what
don't wanna hear that the past 2.5 years was a lie. Like, I don't wanna hear that, and I think any reason behind it isn't gonna be enough for me, as bad as that sounds, because we were so good together, not a single fight. But then again, to me, is that a red flag that we didn't fight?
Yeah, now I know that's where it gets really tricky. Like most of my viewers are trying to figure out, is he a narcissist? Was I the narcissist? And you know, was that a red flag? They brought me flowers. Were they cheating so they gave me flowers? Or, because
Right.
a lot of times they'll overcompensate. And
Right.
we think we have the best partner in the world because they bring us flowers, they take us out to dinner, they go out of town, they call us every night. Well, they call us every night at 8 o'clock because at 10 o'clock they're going to be with somebody else. We're like,
Right.
he's so reliable every day, 8 o'clock. It's like he's doing it so you don't call him later,
Right.
and that's where it gets tricky. And then it gets tricky too. Like if you wanted to love her and you're like, babe, I love you. I want you to be secure every day. I will. And you mean it. Like I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to show up for you.
And show up.
And so you never know, is this true or manipulation? And a lot of,
And she always told me in our entire relationship, start to almost finish, that she couldn't lie to me, that if she lied to me, her body would make herself throw up.
oh, and
But she was lying to me about that journal for how long?
just like when you say lying, was it the omission type lying where she's not talking about it? Or did she say, I didn't write that? Or did she try to spin it?
So, like, how she would say it is, if I would lie, my body would show.
Right.
That's what she would say to me, that she couldn't lie to me because she wasn't capable of lying, if that makes sense.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to me anymore, but, because she went in depth about a lot. She was a very in-depth person. She wanted to talk about
Right.
everything, ins and outs, all of it. And she always told me, if I lied to my dad, I'll get a stomach ache. If I
Okay.
lied to you, I'll get a stomach ache. But that journal was dated 2 months before we even moved into our house, and I didn't see any stomach ache. I didn't see any signs of anxiety.
Okay.
And, her hiding that is a lie,
Yeah.
because you can't sit here and tell me you love me while you're writing in the journal that you yearn for the fights that you guys had, and that you
Oh,
wish that you could go back to the times where you could be together, have it so good, the highs, and then have a rock bottom low and then just forget about it and be
I'm
okay again.
I'm glad you re-brought that up because we were talking how you said she longed for the fights, the highs and the lows, and that's like the narcissist and the narcissistic relationship is like that, and it gets you addicted because they start breadcrumbing you, they start pulling away, and it's that dopamine hit you're trying to get. That it is addictive, and a lot of times narcissists do not like stable people because they're boring. So even though you're loving and comforting and doing everything right, and
It
I,
basically said that in the journal, that we didn't fight enough,
yeah, you bitch.
and I was too healthy.
Yeah, and that's why it's astounding. They talk about like two even keel people, two healthy people. They can have their decent relationship, the stable one. But
Mhm.
you have a narcissist and let's say a borderline, they're off kilter. So to meet each other, it's like bouncing. You meet and then you go back to being yourself, and it's the highs and the lows, and it's like
Right.
whoa, just like thrill rides. You're like, let's go on a roller coaster, but
Mhm.
you have to take a break from that roller coaster. It's fun, and then you get back on, and then you have to take a break, and that's like the relationship. But when you're even keel, it's nice. But the people who have had trauma,
Right.
the trauma that they went through, um, they compensate with the opposite. So if you feel squashed, you want somebody wild because they let you relive that wild side.
Right.
And that's not who you are though. And then it keeps like, that was fun, but it's not me. That was fun, but it's not me. So it is
Right.
addictive.
I agree. I agree very much. I mean, that's kind of how the beginning of our relationship started. She was the party girl at Ball State, and I'm the girl who never went to college, never got that experience. And so when we started dating, we were going to parties, we were hanging out with people, we were having a great time. Like, and not to give myself a big head, but everyone was very fond of me. They
Right.
liked hanging out with me. They liked being around me because I was a very down to earth, very understanding, very compassionate person. And Kenzie and I probably spent 700 days consecutively together.
Really.
We went on trips together, we worked together. several different jobs we worked together. We did everything together. So I almost wonder if I should have given her more space. But then again, it wasn't a toxic thing. Like, you're not allowed to go do that. Like, she'd go stay a weekend with her friends. I'd go hang out with my friend, or we'd do it together just because our friends enjoyed each other.
Okay.
Like, all of our friend groups blended very, very well. So, like, when they asked Kenzie to come, or is Gabby coming? Like, it was just more of that, they are a duo. And so we didn't really get a break from each other.
Do you
So
think you told her?
that's why I told her during the breakup, during the first half of the breakup, I said, take the weekend. Take the weekend, think this over. Make sure that this is true for you. Because when she told me, I looked at her and I said, okay. And I just started crying. Because how do you fight God?
Yeah.
And it's really something that you can't fight back on. And if you do, it kind of makes you look crazy.
Right.
Like, I mean, what do you say there? And when she has the scripture out there and she's shaking from anxiety, she leaves and she tells me that she went to Fuel Church and she sat in a room with two ladies who apparently went through the exact same thing she was going through, dated a woman, realized they needed to turn their life around for Christ to be saved again. And she said when she was in that church, it was the first time she hadn't felt anxious. But she
Interesting.
never we based our relationship off of communication, and we talked so much. And for her to not tell me she was feeling the way she was feeling was like a punch in the gut.
Right.
Because
Well,
I think she was scared that I could have worked through it.
either that you would work through it, or maybe you would sometimes with that, maybe depending on who she is with her trauma, that she was afraid you would abandon her because she brought something up outside the realm, or it's real
Well,
hard.
see, but in the same breath, we always talked about God. Always. He
Hmm.
was a very big footer in our relationship. And then for her to come at me the next day and say we had a manipulation of Christ and this isn't the true Christ, that makes me wonder if that came from her dad.
Right.
Because she had never said those words before that phone call outside.
Yeah, it does make
But
you
I
wonder. And
mean,
then does she want children?
we were planning to get our eggs spliced when we were ready for kids.
Oh, okay.
So they'd cut my egg in half and cut her egg in half and combine them.
Oh, they
That
do
way our
that.
child had both parts of our DNA.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize they did that.
It's actually really cool and I recommend it. I recommend it for anyone who is in love and wants to have kids.
There was a lady at my
Yeah.
dance studio. She's with a woman, and she just had twins. So I thought maybe they just I think sometimes too you'll see like woman A implants, gets
The embryo
the
or seed.
petri dish, and then it puts it into the other woman, so it grows.
Right.
But I didn't realize they did the split. Science is amazing. That's
It's growing
crazy.
every day.
And that doesn't mess up with the DNA?
And it's a trial and error process that you get two eggs out of it. So hopefully the two eggs work. That you just wait for the outcome for.
Wow. So I could have a short baby, huh? No, can I borrow somebody's eggs?
Cut its eggs off.
Right. Well, because they even, I had a friend, she was like one of the first test tube babies. Do you remember those test tube babies? That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Of how people, what was it? Uh, there was that one guy who, he got a little shady, and everybody had like this problem with their eye, and he had like 72 babies that he.
Are you talking about the doctor that was he specialized in like implanting women?
Well, I
I
don't think
believe
she
his
was
name
that
was
one.
Doc. Huh?
I don't think she was one of his babies, but
Right, right. But yeah, he had like 144 kids,
Was it that
and
many?
they all ended up with the same genetic disease that he had.
Yeah, it was
And I
pretty
believe his name was
pronounced.
Dr. Klein.
Interesting. I can't remember. I don't think, did they have red hair too? No, I don't remember.
They were all kind of reddish or blondish.
Yeah, and I think that's probably how he got caught. Um, well, we're going to be running out of
Well, it
time.
was
Oh,
ancestry.com got them caught
really?
because they were putting their DNA into the system, and they would grow this ginormous tree. And they're like,
How's
who
this?
who are all these people that I don't know but I share DNA with? It's a really cool documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, talk about a narcissist only for their own personal gain, wanting to have their seed carry on because they think they're superior. Crazy, crazy.
Yeah,
But
the documentary is called Our Father on Netflix.
okay, thank you. Yeah, because that's something to look into too. Because a lot of people they don't look at the trauma that they can cause other people. He probably even knew he had that defect, and he was probably lying to the women, oh, you can.
Well, in the documentary, they sit down all at a table. Like eight of the first siblings that found each other all sit down at the table and they confront him,
Oh,
and he sits there with zero remorse.
that's the thing
It's
too, where they
really
don't have
interesting.
any remorse. Like
There's
astounding,
no
like,
empathy. And like that happened through Kenzie and I's breakup. She looked at me and goes, "I don't want to comfort you. I don't want to give you a false sense of hope. I I don't want to do that to you." So I was sobbing at the foot of our bed for what felt like hours, and she was just standing there watching me.
oh, I bet that hurt. And some people don't know how to deal with it, but did she ever show, and we only have like 2 more minutes and we can do another one. I run out of time.
Yeah, you're good.
Did she show any signs of trauma with or like a lack of empathy with other people?
No,
No. Okay.
she was very in tune with other people. She liked to hear other people's stories and share her stories on how she learned from them and to give her perspective. A lot of it was her perspective always. She was giving her perspective.
Do you think part of it might be she might not have trusted herself not to get sucked back into the relationship?
I think that would have been hard. I looked at her and I said, "I don't remember our last kiss." And she looked at me and said, "Sorry." Like she didn't give me an inch, because if she would have gave me an inch, I would have ran with it.
Right.
Because all I wanted was for her to come home, you know?
Well,
And she, she took my boxing gloves. Like I was ready to fight.
yeah. I'm sorry you went through that, but you are a strong, strong woman. And I love talking with you. I can't wait to talk to you again. And
I love talking with you.
and you're going to go roller skating with us, me and your mom.
I can't wait.
All right. Thanks again. And I look forward to doing another podcast with you.
Oh,
Thank you.
very soon.
Thanks so much, Gabby.
Of course.
Bye bye.
Bye.